There's this thought that shows up for a lot of people in late healing, especially with chronic Lyme disease. It's not dramatic, it's not hopeless. It usually sounds like this: I don't know if I'm healing or if I'm just getting better at living like this. If that sentence landed in your body instead of your head, then this episode is for you. I'm not here to diagnose or treat anyone. My role is to help people understand what's going on inside their body so they can make better, more informed decisions about their healing. I want to be really clear here. I am not experiencing this thought myself because I had Lyme disease back in 2016. I got better probably by 2018. I used a year of time just focused solely on my health, and I haven't had any symptoms now in 8, 9 years. So this is not coming from a place of this is a thought that I have regularly, but I speak to thousands of Lyme disease patients every single week. And I just want you to know that I hear you, I see you, and this is a thought that comes up all the time with my clients. So, again, this is not my reality. This is a thought that I hear from my clients all the time. And I just want to be clear about that so you don't think that I'm saying this myself, because again, I've been healed now for about 9 years. I don't know if I'm healing or just getting better at living like this. So, how does that feel in your body? Does that make you tense up? Do you feel anxious? Is that something that lands for you? Does that resonate and sound familiar? And if yes, then this episode is going to be a very special one for you. And I'm not going to solve all of your problems right here and right now. I'm not going to cure you, as you probably know, since you've been dealing with this for a while. There's no necessary cure per se. This is a long-term problem that we need to untangle at its root causes. And we're going to get into all of that today. But I want you to know that you're not alone and you're seen. You're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. You're experiencing a very real human experience, and lots of other people are experiencing the very same thing. This thought is extremely common in chronic illness, especially late stage chronic illness. This thought that you don't know if you're healing, or maybe you're just coping better. Maybe you're just ignoring things easier because you're used to them over all this time. And that makes perfect sense. This usually happens when symptoms start to reduce, but you're not really sure, you're not certain that those symptoms are going away. You don't feel 100% absolutely certain that you're getting better. Instead, you're kind of concerned that, wait, so I'm actually getting better this time, or is this just a fluke? And we see this a lot. This is also something that people don't typically say out loud. And so that's why I asked you if you feel this in your body, because most people are not going to tell you, hey, I don't know if I'm getting better or if I'm just getting better at coping with this thing, although they think it in their spare time when they're laying in bed late at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering where their life is headed. This is the deep, dark thoughts that creep in when no one is watching. So they have the reason that it's not talked about is pretty clear. There's a fear of sounding ungrateful. Nobody wants to seem like they're ungrateful for the healing that's come into their life or for getting better. Obviously, nobody wants that. So there is obviously that fear. There's a fear of sounding negative. There's a fear of jinxing the progress, if you will. Like, you know, if you say, is this even working? Am I even getting better? Are you going to actually remove the progress that you've already had? So all those thoughts also come along with this very intrusive real thought. And so people don't typically say it out loud. It's just something they feel. And that's why I asked if you feel this in your body. So we're not trying to prove or disprove this thought. That's not the point here. That's not what we're after. We're actually trying to understand why this thought appears in the first place and maybe how we can navigate this in a healthy way so that we do start to improve and accept our improvements rather than pushing them away. The uncertainty makes complete sense because when you think about it, with chronic Lyme disease, we are healing without a finish line. There is no you're cured moment. There is no moment where the fog lifts and everything goes back to normal. That's really not how chronic cases work. There's a lot more to it. It's a lot more nuanced. There's a lot of complexity. It is different for every single person. So all of those factors make it so that we don't really know where the finish line is. We are running deeper into a fog rather than lifting the fog and everything goes back to normal. And that can be really discouraging, frustrating, and it makes us uncertain. It makes us wonder if we'll ever get out of this thing or if it's just something we'll be fighting forever. And obviously, this is completely different in acute illness like a flu or a cold where, you're feeling the symptoms. It's really, really hard for a short period of time. And then at the end of that short period of time, more or less, life goes back to normal. You basically are healed. You feel completely the same again after some type of quick virus or illness. But this is not that. This is something that can stick with us for many, many years. And just today, I talked to three people who have had this longer than 10 years. And so this is something that can stick with us for decades. And that's a completely different animal. And it makes sense why you would be uncertain in that scenario. On top of that, the long-term illness, it kind of erases our normal baseline. And so what we feel as normal in our body is one thing, right? But then when we get ill, that drops down. We feel ill more often. And that over time erodes that original baseline. And our new baseline becomes much lower in terms of energy or fatigue, brain fog, pain, and all the rest of the symptoms. So that can be why we're so uncertain as well. There's no, normal baseline. We may have just simply dropped our baseline, which is where this thought kind of comes from. Am I just getting better at dealing with this lower baseline, or am I getting better? And so the brain really does rely on those reference states to evaluate safety and to evaluate progress. It's going to say, am I the same or worse than I was before? And, that's how we evaluate things in the brain. That's completely normal. Chronic illness trains the nervous system to scan for threats all the time. It's, symptom monitoring. It's thinking about how you feel in every moment. It's trying to improve how you feel every day. And that leads to the nervous system feeling unsafe. And so it feels like it's under threat or in danger. There's immune system cells that are also alerting danger because of what the microbes do inside of your body. And so all of those things combined really lead to hypervigilance. They lead to a state of really understanding the body and really listening to the body, a state that most people never even acquire, never even experience, because they don't have to experience that state, that level of hypervigilance in their life. And so it trains you to scan for threats and to wonder if you're getting better or not. And so, regardless of if your symptoms have improved or not, you start to feel like, you start to scan and just constantly think about it. And so that's another reason this thought starts to creep in of, am I getting better? I mean, you're just asking that almost every day, regardless. And then you start to wonder, or if you're just coping with this new baseline that's been created. So improvement actually removes certainty because you were certainly feeling that illness for so long. And now things are getting better, so it's the opposite of what you're used to. And that can be really strange. But that's why predictable suffering can feel safer than uncertain relief, which most people will never understand, but I do. Because I've talked to so many people with this problem, we see that, as for some people that have been going through this for a long time, when they start to get better, it kind of jars them. It kind of changes how they feel about everything. They've been dealing with it for 10 years. Sure, you might think, "Oh, I finally have that relief. I would kill for that. That would be amazing. I would do anything to get that feeling." But once it starts happening, it takes you out of your comfort zone a little bit. It takes you out of your normal patterns. And that's jarring no matter what those patterns were before. As humans that seek predictability and safety and normalcy, when you're normal is a is different than most people. When your normal is suffering, then when that suffering starts to get removed, it feels a little bit strange. It feels like something, it's like the other shoe is about to drop, so to speak. It's like, is this really, they don't trust it. They don't trust that the relief is actually there to stay. And sometimes this can lead to self-sabotage. Sometimes this can lead to other mental problems that we can talk about, but it definitely has its challenges. It's not in your head. It's not, there's nothing wrong with you. It's just a little bit different than people might expect. There's also something called an identity lag. So often identity will lag behind physical healing. So people start to identify with Lyme disease and with chronic Lyme disease, and they start to think of themselves as a Lyme warrior or as a Limey, or these terms that people use to identify with as someone who is fighting Lyme disease. And that's totally normal. I mean, I think it's helpful in some cases to have that identity as someone who's healing. But when that physical healing starts to come and your body starts to feel better, your identity is still back there. Your identity is still as someone who fights Lyme, who's healing from Lyme. And that identity lag can cause some people to feel a little bit strange. It feels like they're getting removed from their old life. It feels like they're getting taken away from something that they identified with for so long. And most people never talk about this or share this openly, but that is often the case for some people. I'm not saying it's like this for everyone, but if you're the type of person that has identified with Lyme disease, I think it's important to be a little bit careful, to think through why it is you're identifying with a disease and, maybe just be careful in that case because we become what we identify with. And some people, I don't think this happens that often. I think it's very, very rare. So I want to be careful what I say here. But I think some people do identify with Lyme disease for longer than they need to. And their body can heal and would heal. And they do go through that healing phase, but they still identify with that Lyme warrior, with that person that fights, with that person that wants to heal. And that can actually hold them back. And it's not just Lyme disease where we see this type of pattern. We see this in other scenarios. For example, I think of people that want to be entrepreneurs. This is just a parallel example in life that I've seen where they want to be entrepreneurs and they finally start that business and they start to have some success, and then they sabotage themselves or they break the business because they want to go back to starting the business again. And that they want to be a entrepreneur. Deep down, they don't realize it. It's an identity thing that they have to change and fix. So these identity issues happen across a wide range of different things in our life. And so it makes total sense to me that it could happen with Lyme disease as well. So identifying with Lyme disease itself can be dangerous. It can hold some people back. And I think it's rare when this happens. I don't think it happens to everyone, but I do think it can happen. And so it's worth thinking about a little bit. Um, and so this leads to the am I just coping better loop, right? Because you're having a good day. This leads to doubt, right? You're like, okay, I'm having a good day. This is awesome. But, you know, what's going on here? Is this because, I'm just coping better? Is this because I'm just dealing with the symptoms better? And then when you have a bad day, that leads to fear. You're worried that you're getting worse, that you're not doing anything right, that it's going to last forever. And then a neutral day would lead to confusion. You're like, what? This is just like the same. This is just like flat, right? And so all of those things combined makes it so there's a loop that happens. It's, am I getting better? I don't know. Maybe I'm just dealing with it better because you doubt those good days. You fear those bad days, and you are confused by those neutral days where nothing seems to change, but you're still doing everything to try to get better. So it's like, why is this not working? So this isn't pessimism. This isn't being negative. This isn't holding yourself back. This thought isn't hopelessness. It's not. It's pattern recognition. It's understanding that sometimes you start to feel a little bit better, but then it goes back to normal. And there's no closure with that pattern recognition. There's no end. There's no, you're totally better now because this is a long-term chronic illness. So it's a little bit different. There's no like I said in the beginning, there's no fog lifting and, things go back to normal. It's a little bit different than that. You will likely change as a person as you go through the healing process. And so when you come out the other side, you're actually a different person. You're not just the same person with the same life that went back to normal, like with most acute illnesses, where you feel cruddy for a couple days, then it goes back to normal. This is, you feel cruddy for a long time, years and years, and then it doesn't go back to normal. You change your entire life, and then you're just a different person who doesn't experience that same stuff anymore. So it's very different than an acute illness. These long-term illnesses end up changing you on a deep level, and that's unlike most illnesses that we deal with. Constantly wondering, am I better? Actually saps energy. It drains us. And that cognitive load of constantly scanning the body and wondering if things are better and checking your symptoms and all of that stuff, it increases fatigue, it increases nervous system activation, it makes us feel drained, exhausted, tired, and there's no end in sight. There's no solution. It's just something that you have to deal with every single day. And that can be so draining and takes so much out of us. And so that's why a big part of what I did was calming myself down, allowing myself to focus on other areas of life, other things like creativity, like joy, like family, like the things that truly matter. And I think getting ill does this to a lot of people. It changes how you look at the world in terms of what actually matters. So before getting sick, I used to think about money and business and all this, stuff all the time. Once I got sick, I realized there's so many more important things in the world than paying the bills or just, trying to stack money or, just I got so caught up in my whole career that I not forgot, but I didn't realize how important the people were in my life and how valuable people are and how finding a purpose that serves other people can also be extremely fulfilling. It can give your life meaning. It can give your life purpose. And those are the things that ended up shifting me away from constantly scanning, constantly being concerned with my body, constantly checking for symptoms. It was the creativity, the connection with people, the purpose-driven mindset, finding meaning in my life. And these things are intangible. They're not something you can give to someone else, and they're not something you can buy at the supermarket. So that makes it even harder for people to realize this and to get there. But once you are able to do that, you take your eye off of constantly scanning and constantly thinking about your body and constantly staying on high alert. And for me, things started to get better from that angle. Um, and I think it's because of that, lowering the amount of scanning, lowering the amount of thinking about symptoms and healing and what I could do to get better. A lot of it had to do with, finding other things to focus on, other things that matter, and narrowing down what actually matters in life. It's like that thing that happens when people have a near-death experience or a serious illness like cancer. Everything gets narrow. They can see clearly for the first time all of the crap in their life that doesn't matter at all, and the very few number of things that truly do matter become crystal clear. And that's what happened when I was sick with Lyme disease as well. So there are plateaus. Um, Plateaus don't mean stagnation, right? When you're having progress and then it flattens out and it's just normal and the same all the time. Sometimes that's frustrating and people think they are stuck. They think it's stagnation. They think things have stopped. But in, in biology, stabilization usually comes before expansion or growth, right? So usually there will be an up, then a flat for a little while. Could be a long time, could be a short time, before there's another spike of progress. And it's because the body needs to stabilize. It needs to get to a place where it feels, normal at that new level. And then it can proceed to have more progress, more growth. So the mistake here would be hitting that plateau, thinking it's stagnation, and then giving up on whatever you were doing. And then it could go back down, right? We don't want that. We want to actually lean into the things that we're currently doing and then perhaps even improve those things or add new ideas. I'm not saying add medicines or supplements or anything like that. I'm saying maybe think of adding a new habit or a new thing that you can focus on in your life or anything, really. It could be anything. And we're all so different. It's very difficult to give examples here. But as you can imagine, going up and then going straight, it's all good and well. Don't get discouraged at that plateau. Don't think that it's not working just because it's flattened out. It could be the opposite. It could be potential energy getting stored up at that flat level to then allow you to get to the next peak of progress. So don't make that mistake of thinking you're stuck. I want you to ask yourself this question. What am I actually afraid this thought is protecting me from? I'll say it again. What am I actually afraid this thought is protecting me from? So again, the thought that we're talking about here is, am I getting better or am I just coping better with this illness? Am I getting better? Am I just getting better at dealing with this? And so, what are you afraid that this is protecting you from? What are you afraid of? Because sometimes people are afraid of getting better, which sounds insane when you say it, but they don't say it. It's not a conscious thing. It's a subconscious thing. They hold themselves back, they sabotage themselves for some reason. Could be their identity is wrapped up in it. Could be they are used to suffering. Could be they think they deserve it deep down, right? These are deep-seated thoughts that nobody can answer for you. And so I just want to ask you the question. And maybe this part doesn't resonate. It's not this. Maybe this is not why you're having this thought. But I think it's worth exploring and reflecting on all of these thoughts as we talk about. I mean, this is a very deep philosophical episode here where we're talking about a thought that people have. So we're going to take the time to reflect, ask ourselves questions, and try to understand it a little bit better. And for some people, this might resonate, and for others, it won't. And that's okay. So stick with me here. I'm not trying to blame anybody or shift the blame onto you. That is the last thing I want to do. You've probably had enough of that from the traditional medical system and from the way things work today. So I'd never want to do that, but I do want to ask the right questions and see what happens for you. And I think that's important for you to try to do as well. And of course, share in the comments as we go through this, because being open with each other and being and sharing and telling others how you feel, it can change someone else's life, right? Just someone else seeing that you have the same thoughts and feelings as them can be so validating. It can be so helpful, and it can really shift someone's entire experience. So they feel less alone, they feel seen and heard, and they start to change or move in the right direction because of that. So always share if you have something to share. This channel is a safe space. And this isn't one of those channels that rewards bullies or, people in the comments being mean. This is a channel for people who want to be clear, honest, and have perspective shifts in the comment section. And we see that all the time, luckily, although obviously anything can happen in the comment section, but you know what I mean. We try our best. Lyme disease is not just an infection. It is a nervous system injury, is what I like to think of it. There is immune system and neurological disruption that leads to nervous system disruption. So your immune system is on high alert. This alerts the nervous system to stay on high alert. There's neurological microglials or immune system cells for the brain. Those are on high alert. This all alerts the nervous system that there's problems, there's threats, there's danger. So your nervous system stays ramped up and in a sympathetic dominant state, which means it's anxious, it's fight or flight mode, it's avoidance, it's trying to survive. But what we want it to do is calm down, relax, heal, repair, and that's the hard part. That's what we're trying to do, right? So it's important to remember that we're not just dealing with an infection of microbes, we're also dealing with these other issues that come from the infection with microbes. So it's important then to prioritize safety before growth, right? The body prioritizes safety all the time. And if you're trying to prioritize performance or, having more energy, having a better brain, having a better less pain or just feeling good before prioritizing safety, well, then you're just operating in a frame that your body does not operate within. Your body is constantly worried about safety first. We're wired to survive. We're not wired to push the boundaries of the human body every single day unless first we have safety. And so we need to prioritize safety just like our body does because that will allow us to then eventually get to the point where we're prioritizing performance above safety. Not above safety, but the safety has to be there to get to the performance. So in this case, the absence of symptoms isn't always immediately trustworthy. The brain waits for consistency before relaxing, right? If the brain and the body and the nervous system wants to see consistency, it wants predictability, it wants safety. And so when symptoms start to go away, the brain doesn't immediately trust that. Why? Because it hasn't been consistent. We need a few days or weeks or months stacked up of that consistent feeling better to feel safe. And so the brain will wait for that consistency before turning down the threats, the danger, the alarms, because it wants to make sure. And that's an easy way to think about it. Obviously, it's a lot more complex than that. And it's the body does keep the score. The body remembers illness even when the symptoms are not there. So even after recovery, the body remembers that illness and what it was like and how it affected it. And this is implicit memory versus explicit memory, right? We have explicit memories where we remember things that happened outside of our body. When we have implicit memories that kind of just sit within us, and it's just something that was there, something we can feel more than we can explain with words. And so it's really important to think about that as well, because sometimes that could be the reason why your body doesn't trust that the symptoms are starting to go away, because it still can feel those old symptoms. It can still feel those memories. For example, I've done it many times, discussed how I felt in the moments, the dark moments when Lyme disease was hitting me the hardest. Or I've tried to put words to how it feels. But the reason I can do that is because I can still feel it. I can still goes back to those implicit memories, those moments that I still remember, the fog that I was in, the pain, the nervousness, the anxiety, the lack of sleep, the sleeping 18 hours a day on top of lack of sleep. I know that sounds weird when I say that, but you'll know what I mean. The tired but wired feeling and the heart problems that I was experiencing that made me feel like a ghost or a shell of myself. And that's really the only way to explain some of these things. But if you've been there, you know what this is. You know how that feels. And it's just something that I try to explain with words, but the feeling is what I'm explaining, and the feeling is what I remember. So, really important to understand that because as our symptoms go away, we're probably going to have that implicit memory of those symptoms regardless. And sometimes that can either keep us in that threat mode or it can keep us from trusting that they're gone completely because we can still feel those symptoms whenever we want to. Most people will never talk about this, but healing can feel very boring, right? When we're used to our body feeling like it's in a chaotic state, it's in this state of just massive inflammation, things going on all the time. We have these weird symptoms. We're explaining it to other people. We're going to different doctors, and it's all chaotic. It's a wild energy. It's not calm or simple. And then when symptoms disappear and things start to go our way, things start to get better, and we're healing, it can feel kind of boring. It's kind of like the fighter who trains all the time to become in the best shape of his life. Then he goes out and has this massive adrenaline-packed fight where, you know, people are getting knocked out or submitted and, they're hurting each other. And then that's like the most chaotic moment in that person's life. And then they end up getting addicted to that because the second they leave, they can't get that chaotic feeling from anywhere else. They can't do anything else to get that same feeling. And so a lot of that can happen to people who experience chronic illness. They have that chaotic energy in their life. They have that adrenaline, they have that anxiety, they have all of the problems stacking up against them. And then when things start to get better, it could just feel boring. It's like, okay, so what? I just like drink, stay hydrated, eat the right foods, take the right supplements, care for my body, go to sleep at the same day every time, I mean, the same time every day. And when you compare that to the life they were leaving before, well, it's boring. And that's just a reality that I realized, and I wanted to share as well. I'm not saying that means anything or that's the reason anything happens. I'm just saying it's interesting to think about how chaotic life can be when you're trying to heal and how boring and simple life can be once healing starts to occur. Time is absolutely precious, the most valuable thing we have in this world. But the role of time when it comes to healing is often underestimated. In fact, everything we talk about works better when you multiply it by time. Simply just adding time to doing the correct things day in and day out can improve the total outcome of what you're experiencing. Healing works over time. And people are usually not willing to add time or to multiply by time when they're trying to heal. And the reason is because they don't want to be doing this in the first place. Completely understandable. But when you do add time to your process, right? So like you have this process, if you only do it for a week, do you think healing will come? Well, maybe for some people, but for other people, they need more than a week, right? They need more time. And the role of time is so valuable in the healing process that people forget. Oftentimes, what we need is just more time of doing these consistent, predictable, safe habits that improve the body over time. And we always say over time, but we still discount that in our brain. It's our most valuable resource. So it makes sense. You don't want to give that time up. You don't want to be stuck in healing mode for too long. But if you can relinquish some of that time, if you can let go and give your time towards healing more often and be okay with that and be okay with the fact that it's going to take time, that's when all of the progress comes in. That's where all of it comes from. Because imagine the amount of anxiety that reduces. Imagine the amount your nervous system can relax when you are okay with the fact that it's going to take time. You see, I think a lot of the turmoil we feel is around time. We don't want to spend the time feeling like this. We want to immediately get better. We want it to be faster. We want it to go quicker. But that role of time makes everything work better. The body works on averages over time. It doesn't just change overnight into something new. And so don't be afraid to accept the fact that it's going to take time because that could be the unlock that you needed. The nervous system needs evidence. It needs to feel like things are moving in the right direction. And once it does, then it starts to feel safe. It starts to feel like it can turn down the alarm systems in the body. And so it needs positive or neutral experiences to feel like things are going in the right direction. So, how do we do that? Well, it depends. It's different for every single person. But for me, it was, focusing on finding meaning and purpose in my life, on being creative, trying to do things that were inspiring to me or creative or pushed my limits. I tried things that I didn't necessarily want to try, but to see if maybe, this will spark something in me. Maybe this will change something. Maybe if I try painting, I'll find out that, hey, I really like painting and it really makes me feel more calm. It's not necessarily what happened to me. I'm not a huge painter. I did try it though, and I enjoyed it. I didn't love it. I didn't fall in love with it and start doing it every single day, but it was something that I did to be creative, to keep my mind off of the healing process, to bring more joy and meaning into my life. And I didn't put any pressure on it. I didn't force myself to do it. I just said, hey, I'm going to try this. Let's see how this goes. And then I'm going to do it in a relaxed, calm state and see if it's something that I could see myself doing for the long term and see if it brings something extra into my life that I don't currently have. And so that was a positive experience overall, even though I didn't commit to a life full of painting. I felt good in the moment. I took deep breaths. I felt grounded. I felt centered. I felt creative. I felt inspired. I painted something that I loved. And that gave me a really good experience for that day. And that helped my nervous system see the evidence. Look, things are normal. Things are okay. We can be calm. We can be restful. We can be helpful. We can be repairing and healing instead of fighting a battle at all times. And so that finding those things that work for you to show evidence, to show proof to the nervous system that there are positive and neutral experiences in your life, not just constantly fighting illness, can improve the nervous system response, and in turn, it can improve your symptoms and your healing as well. And the opposite of that is also true. If you aren't seeing those regular positive experiences or neutral experiences, the nervous system can stay in that fight or flight response. And oftentimes that's why people don't trust that their symptoms are going away. They start to doubt it. And when they doubt it, they continue to self-scan. They continue to have a nervous system that's on high alert instead of a nervous system that calms down and helps with repair and healing. And healing feels invisible a lot of the time because it's boring, it's predictable, it's safe. And most healing happens quietly, not dramatically. Things don't just shift overnight and the fog lifts and everything changes. As we've talked about, it's a slow progress. It's a long period of just doing the right things day in and day out. The boring, safe, predictable things day in and day out. And it happens quietly underneath the surface. It's not loud, it's not expressive. It's just simply reaching towards homeostasis every single day. And that's boring. And that's not sexy or cool. It's just boring, plain old, quiet healing. You don't want to measure your healing too closely because if you look at it with a magnifying glass, it's kind of like watching a pot of water boil. So if you're too close to a pot of water that's boiling, I mean, you'll be fine at first. The water's not boiling yet. It's just a pot of water. But as it gets hotter and hotter, it starts to bubble and bubble and bubble, and eventually you get splashed with that hot water because you're too dang close. The same goes for monitoring your symptoms too closely. If you're constantly measuring them and, focusing all of your attention on them, you will always see them and you will always get more of what you focus on. And so don't get too close. Don't measure your healing or your symptoms that closely. Sometimes we need that distance. We need to, do some hobby or do something that takes our mind off of all of the pressure of trying to fix the body. And that's when real progress comes in. And this doesn't work all the time for everybody, but oftentimes this can be very helpful for a lot of people. I know it helped me, and I've seen it help a lot of my clients as well when they focus on something else. They take a step back or 5 steps back from their healing and they do something else unrelated, completely unrelated, nothing to do with anything. Maybe they paint for a day, like me, or maybe they, go on a trip, or maybe they try some other creative expression that they never tried before, like making music or trying to learn the piano. And little do they know, this actually helps them move in the right direction. It brings their body into a flow state that helps them feel creative. It attaches them to a meaning or a purpose. It attaches them to something bigger than themselves, which allows them to feel grounded, feel healthy, and it allows their nervous system to calm down and feel safe, like things are going in the right direction. And when that happens, those alarm systems that say there's a threat, there's a danger, can start to turn down, and that's what truly helps the body move forward. So I'm not saying doing hobbies fixes Lyme disease. It's not what I'm saying. That's way too simplistic. What I'm saying is sometimes we need to take a step back or 5 steps back and just really allow life to be lived. Just allow yourself to be human for a little while. Try focusing on other things in your life besides just your health. Because I know if you're watching this, you're someone who focuses on your health, which is absolutely amazing. You're in the top, percentages of people in the world that really care about being healthy and improving their health, which is great. But let's also remember that there's more to life. There are other things to try, to think about, to experience. Become a human again and get out there and experience some of those things. And healing eventually should become about what life can hold, right? It should become about capacity, not control. So instead of trying to control symptoms and figure out your symptoms and get to the bottom of this, it should be about what can I handle now? What else can my body handle? And that ends up meaning you're moving in the right direction. It also helps you improve and get better as you go along. So it's not really about what symptoms do. It's more so about what your life can hold. What can you get done? What can you do in a day? And starting to understand and improve that capacity is what healing should look like in the later stages. More so than what symptoms do. It should be about what you can do and what capacity your body has in those later stages. So again, this thought that we're talking about, this thought that am I even getting better or am I just coping better? This thought, it doesn't mean you're stuck, okay? It just means that you're in between identities and you're at this stage where you're trying to figure out who you are and where you're going next. And that's a really valuable and important stage to be at. So it's important to think about that and not to argue with this thought and not to fight it. Like, logic doesn't dissolve your nervous system beliefs. Logic doesn't just flip the switch and make everything go away. This is something that's being felt and experienced in your body, not something that can be reasoned with or transformed by thinking about it more and by justifying it logically. When healing, we need to let the body lead the way. Instead of waiting for reassurance from our brain or our brain telling us we're getting better, we've got to let lived evidence show us that we're getting better. We've got to witness the body getting better, see it happen in real time, and let that reassure us. Let that replace that mental reassurance that we're getting better. Sometimes we are just overthinking our body, right? We're constantly wondering about our life, about our healing, about our symptoms, instead of just letting the body do what it does and witnessing that, seeing that, and letting the body lead the way. And so for some people, this will land and resonate. For others, this might not make any sense at all. It depends on what type of person you are. Someone who's more analytical and logical might not understand this. They might not resonate with this, and that's completely fine. But someone who's more emotional or more in tune with their body or more understanding of how they feel might understand that you can slow down, let the body do what it does, witness the body, and use that as evidence that you're getting better instead of trying to reassure the mind. A lot of this thought that we're exploring has to do with confidence and lack of confidence, right? We're saying, I'm not confident that I'm healing. But it's important to remember that oftentimes confidence comes after expansion, right? First, we need expansion. We need to change. We need growth. We need to feel better. We need that healing. And then the confidence comes from seeing that, right? Not the other way around. We don't feel confident first. We feel confident after witnessing the same thing going on, consistency for a period of time. And so when the body starts to feel better and you start to doubt those feelings and you start to say, that maybe I'm just coping with this better. Let it play out. Let the body lead the way. Stick with what you're feeling, but don't just write it off. Don't just immediately say it can't be happening. It's not real. Instead, let the confidence come from the fact that you are seeing results. You are seeing that growth. You are seeing healing. And then that confidence will lead to more of that down the road. So that lack of confidence is completely understandable, especially if you've been dealing with this for many, many years. But confidence comes from expansion. Expansion doesn't come from confidence. And this will lead us to a place where we need to release the healing identity. Try letting go of being someone who is healing. Because if you stay stuck as someone who is healing, how can you get better? Once you let go of that identity, that will help you move into a new identity, but you will need to find that. It's like a hermit crab finding a new shell, right? It's got to let go of the old shell in order to get into a new one that's bigger, more expansive, can fit more growth, can become a better person. I mean, a better crab. Um, but yeah, we've got to really be methodical about what we identify with. Because if you identify with someone who is healing, who's to say you won't just love that identity and stay there forever? Now, I know some people might get angry when they hear that. It can sound like victim blaming sometimes. That's not what I'm trying to do here. I'm just trying to say that what we identify with is extremely important, and we should be intentional with that. And if you're identifying with someone who is healing, that is good. That is okay for now, as long as you are someone who is healing. But as soon as you are healing and getting better, you want to try and look for a new identity. Look for the next thing you're going to become and anchor yourself there instead, because that will allow you to grow into that new person and not be someone who is healing for the rest of your life. And even when you do get better, there is this subtle grief, right? This loss of time, of identity. A lot of it has to do with time. And this could be even after you're better. You might realize, I just spent 10 years doing this. I spent a year doing this, whatever it is for you. And grieving that lost time, that those years that passed by while you were going through this is completely normal. It's subtle. People don't realize it. People don't realize why you're sad or upset about this whole process. But if you've been there, you know what I'm talking about. There's a subtle grief of losing time, energy, maybe even money over the years that you're trying to heal and get better. And that's completely normal. It's okay to grieve lost time. So there's this moment in healing when everything shifts from healing to living. And that's really where we want to get to. And it's hard to get there. It's not going to just magically appear. It's something that's intentional and it takes time. Once you are seeing progress and you're seeing that healing, there's a moment where we need to shift our focus. Instead of focusing on healing 24/7, that might get you to a certain place. That might be a positive thing that pushes you to a place where you start to get recovery. You start to get less symptoms. You start to get better. It's absolutely amazing. But then your focus needs to shift outward into living again, into becoming a different person, and identifying as something new, not as someone who's healing, but as someone who has healed. And then shifting that focus into living a life worth living again. And what are you going to spend your time doing if you're not going to spend your time worried about symptoms, supplements, healthy habits and this and that, right? Once you get into a rhythm and things are going well, it's time to start living again. It's time to start looking at how your life can become something amazing again. And so that's a really powerful place to get, but it's sometimes people forget to start looking at living and they stay stuck in healing for too long. When they can start to move towards living a better life, they just stay focused on their body and their healing, on their symptoms, on their lack of symptoms, on Lyme disease itself, even though it's something from their past now. And they can start to look forward into the life they want to create. They forget to do that. They forget to make that small shift. And that's sad because the whole reason we want to get better is so that we can have more life in our years, not just more years in our life. And to have life in your years, you've got to go out and live. So, what are you going to do once you get better? Once things are moving in the right direction? What are you going to do with that time, energy, focus? Now that you don't have to focus 24/7 on symptoms, what's going to make your life a life worth living? And that's where people tend to get to in later stages when they start to get that recovery. And sometimes just doing that, just looking at living instead of healing can shift everything for people and they realize, wow, I'm better now. I don't need to focus on this anymore. I don't need to ruminate on the thoughts and the symptoms and the dark times, and I can actually move forward with my life. And that's a powerful place to be, and I hope you get there. But remember, there's no ceremony, right? There's no announcement. There's no arrival for healing. Things don't just magically change all of a sudden. It's a process and it takes time and it just unfolds before you over time. It's not going to just appear. There's no announcement. There's no like arrival party. There's no like finish line for you to cross. And that's what makes it difficult because it's a lot easier to accomplish things when you can see the goal, you can see the finish line, you can see where you're headed. But this is different. There's no finish line. There's no arrival. There's no ceremony. There's just life unfolding before you. And if you have lack of trust in the ability for your symptoms to be gone, that's completely normal. And that's what we're talking about, right? But it's important to realize trust is a process. It's about repetition, not belief, right? It's about seeing things happen, not believing things are happening. It's about doing the right things over and over and over again, not just believing that the right things are being done. So there is nuance there. It is important to realize that trust is repetition, not belief. It's important to get to the point where you stop asking the question, am I healing? Because eventually the answer will be yes. Consistently, you're healing, you're getting better. It takes time, it's unfolding before you. But that question needs to be replaced because if it's not, you'll just continue asking, am I healing? Am I healing? And that can just raise the alarm systems in the body. It can, trigger the nervous system, trigger the immune system to continue fighting, even though you're already way past where you were before. So instead of am I healing, we need to shift that question to what can my body handle now? Right? So this shifts us from worried about symptoms to being worried about the body's capacity. What can I handle? What can I add into my life? That's the new question we need to be asking moving forward. And capacity matters more than certainty. Certainty is a mental mind state. It is you just basically saying that you know how things are, which is great, but capacity, what you can handle, and improving the amount that your system can handle is very valuable. It's more important than certainty. So instead of wondering, you know, are my symptoms getting better or am I just coping better? That is a lack of certainty that you're facing. It's more important to wonder, what can my system handle now? What can my body handle? Can it handle the same or more than it could before? And that is the new healing question that I would want you to take on if you're at this phase where you're wondering if you're actually getting better or if you're really just getting better at dealing with where you're at. It's about capacity. What can your body handle? That's what's up to you to figure out and improving that capacity because it can improve. Bodies, humans are very adaptable. We change all the time to handle more and more as time goes by. So it's important to ask yourself what you can handle and how you can handle more. And improving that capacity will push you forward. But the body doesn't need convincing. It doesn't need to be told that it's okay. It doesn't need to be persuaded. It needs consistency. It needs to feel that things are moving in the right direction. It needs to be moving in the right direction. And the way it moves in the right direction is boring, predictable, safe, and consistent habits over time. And so understanding those habits and then taking them on slowly but surely will allow your body to get better slowly but surely. And that consistency is really what should be rewarded. That consistency is really what we should be focused on and looking at every day, not how we feel in each and every moment, not whether we feel good, bad, neutral. That comes over time. But the consistency, did we do it? Did we show up and do the things we wanted to do consistently? Did we go to bed at the same time as always, wake up at the same time as always, drink enough water that day? Did we eat the right foods that day? Anti-inflammatory foods, healthy, whole, plant-based foods. Did we move our body a little bit? Did we go for a walk? Did we get in nature? Did we get sunlight? Did we, do all of these tiny little micro habits that stack up to create a healthy body, a healthy individual? That consistency is what drives everything else. And we need to reward and focus on consistency above all else instead of symptoms, instead of how you feel that day. Consistency is what matters. Even you might have a good day and then a neutral day and then a bad day, right? But even on that bad day, did you do the thing consistently? Because if you did, that's a good day. You won. You won if you were consistent. Not, you didn't win because you felt good. You won because you did the things that you were supposed to do consistently. Sometimes fear can masquerade as awareness. People say, I'm just really, really aware of what my body's doing, of how I feel in every moment, of where my symptoms are at. I have that tuned in awareness, and that is an amazing superpower to have. That is great that you've learned to listen to your body. I love that. But sometimes that awareness can actually just be fear. It can be holding you back. It can be a way to say, I know myself, so I'm not going to do this XYZ. I'm not going to go to this social event with all my friends because I know that I'm too tired. And that might look like the right decision on the outside because you're self-aware and you understand your body and yourself. And that's a great thing. But what if it's just fear holding you back? What if you're just afraid of the unknown, of being around people that you might not know yet? Or, I'm just thinking of an example here. But what if it's fear and not awareness? Sometimes people hold themselves back with the disguise, the masquerade of awareness at the forefront rather than actually stepping up because they're afraid. And I'm not saying that's wrong or bad or anything like that. I mean, we're humans. We all get afraid all the time. But I think if you're really self-aware, if you're truly self-aware, you will know when you're doing something out of fear versus doing something out of genuine self-awareness. So, really important to differentiate the two and understand yourself on that level deeper than you even do now. Even though you're probably doing great if you already have that self-awareness. So, great job. But again, some people trick themselves into thinking they're being self-aware when really they're just afraid. And what can we do to then push ourselves out of that fear and be so self-aware that we know, wait, I'm just saying that. I'm actually just afraid. Let me change my circumstances. Let me change let me stop self-correcting there. Let me stop holding myself back. Let me allow myself to live life fully and go do that thing, even though I'm afraid to do it. And that's when life is truly being lived. So, this thought that we're discussing here, this thought that says, am I really getting better or am I just getting used to this? Am I just coping better? This thought will pass, not with force, but with time. You don't have to change the way you think just because you're having this thought. It's completely normal. It's just that we need to move past it. It's okay to let go of this thought. You're not behind. You don't have to, feel like you're falling behind. I've felt this feeling before as well with chronic illness and Lyme disease. It's, you see all the world going on around you and how you want to be a part of that world. You want to be building something. You want to be doing something with your life, but you feel like you can't because you're still healing. You're still trying to get better. Your body isn't giving you the foundation that you need to build upon, whether that's building relationships with people, building a business, building, an art, your creativity, building yourself as a human being, personal development. All of those things require energy and they require a foundation of health. And if you don't have that foundation of health because you're sick right now, it can feel like you're falling behind. It could feel like life is just slipping through your fingers. But I want to say it clearly. You're not falling behind. You're right on time. You're right where you're supposed to be. This challenge is here and it's forcing you to focus on your health right now. But that doesn't mean that you're behind. It just means you're focused on your health right now. And it doesn't need to be this, this big, deep meaning. It just is what it is. We all go through seasons in life. And right now is your health and healing season. And that's okay. In fact, it's better than okay. It's excellent. Most people would benefit from having this period of this season in their life, but they don't because they don't have the same challenges that you're facing. And so eventually it will catch up with them. Their life will need that healing phase. They will need to focus on their health, but you're getting it out of the way right now. And so that's what makes you different. That's what makes you special. So try not to focus or compare yourself to others or think that you're falling behind because you're not. You're just focusing on something different than other people right now. And that's completely okay. Healing doesn't require vigilance forever. Eventually, well, actually, the whole time, it requires safety. In the beginning, it feels so difficult. It feels so chaotic, right? And that requires vigilance to get through because you've got to figure out, figure out where you're headed. You got to point your skis in the right direction before you can go down the mountain. You can't just, you know, wing it. You can't just let things happen. You've got to be a little bit vigilant, do a little bit of research, understand what's going on, get yourself situated in the right direction. And that vigilance does serve you in the beginning, but eventually it comes down to safety, not vigilance. Vigilance can lead to more alarms, more anxiety, more nervous system activation, more, you know, more high alert. But what we need is safety. We need calmness. We need recovery. We need repair. We need healing eventually. So that vigilance serves you in the beginning, but there comes a point where it stops serving you. And instead, it's just holding you back. And we need instead to replace that with safety, predictability, consistency, boring behaviors day in and day out. You're allowed to move on. And I know, who am I to be giving you permission for what to do with your life? But I'll tell you this, permission is a powerful thing. Often we hold ourselves back in a lot of ways. But if we give ourselves that permission to move forward, that can release so many negative thoughts. We can let go of so much baggage when we just give ourselves permission to feel okay, permission to move forward with our life, permission to move on, let go. And I can't obviously give you that permission. You've got to give that to yourself. But you're allowed to let go and move on. If healing has come to this point where you feel like you're getting better, but you're not sure because you've lived with this for so long, it's okay to let go and move on with the rest of your life and let the body do what it does. Let things unfold as they will. Because if you've been healing for more than 10 years, like a lot of my clients, there's a lot of life left to live that doesn't involve health, healing, and focusing so intently on that. And sometimes what we really need is to let go and to move on and to continue trying to live our best life and let the chips land where they will. And for the right people, this will resonate. And if you're not the right person, if this doesn't resonate, that's completely okay. You're just not in the same position as the other person, right? It's not about who's right and who's wrong. It's just that we're all so different. And for some people, this will land and mean a lot to them. And for other people, this will make no sense. And they might even get upset with me saying it. If you're having this thought, I don't know if I'm healing or if I'm just getting better at dealing with this. This is a sign of transition. This is a transition point in the healing cycle where you're starting to feel better, but you're not sure if you should trust it. You're not completely certain that you're getting better. And that's normal. Oftentimes, healing looks like that. It doesn't look certain. It doesn't have a parade that runs down the street when you feel better. There's no finish line. It just quietly happens in the background. So if you're starting to feel better, but you don't trust it, and you're not fully certain that you're feeling better, this is a point of transition. This is a point where most people could benefit from starting to let go, starting to move on, starting to focus on other areas of their life. And just doing that can help immensely. Why? Because the body lets go. The body puts down the alarm systems, which means it triggers less Th1 immune system activation, less Th17 immune system activation. It lowers its guard. It allows your nervous system to feel safe, predictable, consistent. And that allows your body to just continue to get better. Sometimes what people need, the right people need, is just to let go. And that can make all the difference. This thought doesn't mean you're not healing. It simply means that you're learning to trust a body that no longer needs constant watching. The vigilance that served you in the beginning of your journey is no longer serving you, and it's time to get to a place of consistency instead of vigilance, of living instead of constant watching and waiting. It's time to get back out there. It's time to let go. It's time to move on. And perhaps this is a moment to celebrate. Maybe this is a transition away from constantly being worried and ruminating and wondering if your body is healing to finally feeling like you're moving in the right direction. And now all you have left to do is live your life the way you want to live your life. You don't need to identify as someone who's healing. You can identify as someone who's living their life the way they want to live their life, whatever that looks like for you. Maybe for some people, it's time to choose a new identity and lean into that. Thank you for joining me for this episode, and I hope this one makes you reflect. There's no action you need to take, there's nothing you need to do. Just think about the words that were said here today, and hopefully they help you, guide you a little bit, or at least just give you someone who truly understands what you're going through. I've been there, and I've helped thousands of other people who have had this thought. And I want you to know that you're enough, you're not broken, and you've got a friend in me. To quote that cheesy song. Reach out if you need anything, and I'll see you in the next episode.